Now, the rest of the story.
Well, can you guys tell that it's kind of dry out? This is the actual lawn down at the valley, and the hay is coming back, the grass is coming back. There isn't much alfalfa down here at all. I took care of that with the sprayer. And I got my fertilizer down here ready to go. It's 32% liquid with a gallon to the acre of Black Max. And I'm putting down 20 gallons to the acre, which it's grass. How can you justify doing this? Why do you want to do this? But don't get me wrong, it's not fun on the pocketbook, but I'm not seeing the big advantage at this point in time of shorting myself, shorting the hay crop. I had a healthy run on first cut, as you can tell, and I mean, by the time this video is out, a bunch of this is probably gone already. But my current logic is I want to go through, give second cut as best chance as I can, and if I need to cut back on anything, we'll see what the weather's like after I get second cut off, if I'm going to go ahead and put the nitrogen down, or if I'm just going to go ahead and just spray the Radiate Max, I think is the name of it, and I'll just take whatever grows back for third cut. For second cut, it's June 23rd, I want to say. It's at the beginning of the video. We got a lot of growing season yet. We've had 8 days of dry weather. Our last significant rain was 8 days ago, Wednesday of last week, and it's starting to show that the surface moisture level is getting awful low. The grass is drying. It's looking like August weather, to be honest with you. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. We knocked out all of our hay ground in very short order. We have about, 15 acres of new seeding. I'm thinking we'll probably go ahead and knock that down on Monday and then make that the following day. So the two tenders will be out of here. Get this, I got the streamers on. I'll get this stuff streamed on, and I get a little bit of regrowth about another week or so, probably next weekend or a week from this weekend. I'll go ahead and come down with the Radiate and potentially a bug spray. For the amount of heat we've been having, the 80s and everything, the bugs, especially at night, if you're outside at all with any kind of light out, you know, artificial light from a skid steer, four-wheeler truck, you're getting eaten alive. The bugs are nasty. And set these off to the side. I just wanted to make sure, I didn't come down and see where these were parked before I came down here, so I wanted to make sure that I can get close enough to it with the tractor to at least reach, especially that back one. It doesn't seem like much right now, but I'm gonna have the booms folded out. I'm gonna fold them out as little as possible. And I go over to the neighbors' places. I'm really aiming that's gonna be the only place I have to fold them out. But it's 1 o'clock and I gotta get cranking because they're calling for 1/4 inch of rain tonight, starting at sometime after midnight. And then tomorrow they're calling for 9% chance of rain for most of the day. We'll see what we actually get, but a 1/4 inch, if I get this liquid on, that'll help wash it into the ground. We get another 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch tomorrow, that'll do an even better job. Plus it'll launch the corn, the soybeans, the hay ground, the grass ground. It'll launch that into growth again. So we don't have much of any corn that's actually rolled up. I cut you guys off earlier. I always kept talking. And I'm a little over 70 acres down. I'm done with the lower bottom. I'm done with the bench ground. The bench ground is 40% of the farm as it is as far as acres. And I didn't really address too much the duals as far as spraying down here. I know I've said in the previous video, Dad was feeling the 46 is just too top heavy down here. It does. If you don't have your wits about you and you're very aware of where you're at and what you're doing, this thing starts to feel top heavy with just running singles. I did all the spraying last year running singles on it. I could do it, but I'm not gonna lie, I definitely had some areas where you're white knuck on it. And same thing with the weights in the front end. Dad and Ryan, they took off like 4, maybe 6 suitcase weights off the front, and Ryan was down here cutting, and the front end was getting light on him, and it gets kind of tiring at the end of the day when you're having to steer with the brakes, the rear brakes of the tractor. And Dale was hauling in hay with 46 in the flatbed, and we were loading it heavier than we normally do. We don't go down the road with it that heavy. But what we were putting on was 10 bales. Yeah, I think we were putting about 10 bales on, and that's a lot of weight, even with the full tank of fuel in the front, full set of weights in the front. You can set this tractor up on end really easy. I guess that's not accurate. When I say set it up on end, I mean your front tires are skipping up off the ground, which isn't exactly a whole lot of fun either. The sprayer is getting the job done. Once again, I think everybody knows I'm not a fan of the 3-point sprayer. To spray out the 2,000 gallons of spray, I mean, yeah, to be as efficient as you can down here, I mean, going all the way down to the lower bottom, and then, like, spraying from the far side and then working your way back home, or back up this direction. The reason that I do that is that way when I do run out, I don't have to run clear back down to the other end just to spray 2 or 3 passes. That's a lesson I learned early on when I first started spraying down here. And I can fold up and go like up through the center section, up through there, but folding up isn't worth it in this thing. And when I gotta go over to the neighbor's place, I know I'm gonna have to, I'll fill up as full as I can. I'll go over and spray out what I can. But then the problem is, I still have to fold back up and come back over and probably clean out what's left of the tanks. I mean, it's no big deal. We're not that late. I think we're after 5 o'clock at night. The sun doesn't set till 10. The only thing is I'm starting to wear on my wife's nerves just a little bit, because I haven't been home hardly because I've been working. And that wouldn't be that big of a deal, but her and Erlina are going camping this weekend with her family, and I didn't get home till 4 o'clock this morning from wrapping that hay. And Brittany left at 6. I saw Erlina for a grand total of about 2 minutes. So it's trying to get done down here so I can go home. Ryan's done all the chores. I think pretty sure I told him to put all the equipment away. Tomorrow they're calling for a chance of small hail, which it seems like anymore they're doing that just to cover their butts. And any chance of any kind of storm anymore, they basically say, you know, why don't you just go wait in the basement just to be sure. And we need the rain. None of our crops are really curling up too much. I mean, there's different places in the area that the whole field looks like it's planted pineapples. That also depends on hybrid and soil type and moisture that's available. I mean, what I was always told was, especially with these longer day hybrids, they can actually handle the lack of moisture better than the short season hybrids, because the short season hybrids can't mess around. They are essentially running to the finish line because they only have so many days before they mature, right? Well, with the longer day stuff, it's more apt to take its time. And we saw it last year where our corn was showing signs of moisture, needing moisture. And our yields were there. Were very much there. I had somebody ask me as far as planting into concrete, you know, the hard soil in the spring. I've asked that same question when I was younger. I didn't know. But why can't you just go through with the sprayer and put down a bunch of water and soften the ground that way? Anything short of a pivot, you know, an irrigation pivot, running it around the field, you're not going to put enough water down with a self-propelled sprayer. It's not feasible. I mean, economically, you're putting down a lot more water per acre that you're going to constantly be running back to the tender. And it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you're burning up fuel and pumping water, because if you have a water source to even to pull from, you know, no, that just doesn't work. But I am going through, thanks to the ag leader and the GPS and running RTK, I'm actually running the same lines from last year. Granted, I'm running the duals on it now, so I'll be running down more grass when I come through and do my foliar, which I think I've said already. But running the same lines as last year, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. But if I'm going to be going through and compacting the soil down by running over it a bunch of times, I'd rather keep it to one area and let the grass avoid the compaction as much as possible. What are we looking at right now? We're looking at, I cut this stuff last Thursday. I can look at my phone, but the problem is I'm talking to it. I'm figuring about 6 weeks. Pretty close to last year. I'll be looking at this really close late July, probably 1st of August. I'm gonna really be going, all right, is there a chance of doing a third cutting down here? Is it too dry? Is the moisture there? I mean, am I better off just letting it go and grow as long as it can and make it in September? If it gets to that kind of situation where it's a water issue of, you know, is it going to produce something? Chances are I'll come down and I'll just make the bottom, because there's moisture here, without a doubt. I mean, it's drying out on top. Once again, saying over and over again, the management down here of getting this hay made. My map that I GPSed 2 years ago, I was going around all the areas where I could, you know, where there wasn't any water standing and where the grass wasn't, you know, multiple years old. And I'm going in, probably in some spots I'm going in 3 passes wide, and 3 passes wide with this sprayer is 42.5 feet. So that's that much more ground that I didn't have access to 2 years ago. And putting the fertilizer down, I am a firm believer in, we're going through and we're making this stuff off like we are. And a big thing of what that's doing is that that's allowing that ground to get exposed to sunlight, allows it to breathe, and it's allowing it to start fresh with a new growth, versus having to try to grow through that thatch that's about 6 inches thick. That fence line here, that is on the list of things I gotta find time to do, because I don't want to wait too long and then have all my regrowth around that area get trampled over. But it might just happen, because today is Saturday. They're calling for rain tonight, tomorrow. Tomorrow for me is probably just going to be a machine shed day. Like I've said, working on the equipment. Everything needs to be gone through. I'm talking filters, cabs, grease, the 76 in particular, maybe the deer steer. Need the oil changed in them. the 76 will be getting oil changed in it. And I got more than I can do in one day. I mean, you hope for rainy days, but then once you get them, then it's, all right, it can dry out now because I want to go out and do stuff. I mean, nobody likes that cooped up feeling of being locked in the machine shed. You're not locked in the shed, but you got things that you got to do. I'll be back here and whatever. I'll try to get you guys involved with spraying the Radiate. I might be doing a weed and a bug killer. For how hot it's been, the bug pressure hasn't been as bad as last year yet, but I've been told that it is starting to creep into the area. Guys are starting to get a little bit concerned with some of the bugs that they're seeing in their crops. Last year, that's what kind of burned me. That was a yield loser last year, as I had grasshoppers before it first cut last year, which did affect the field up by the machine shed. And then I came through, I made it, I did fertilizer, I did the Radiate and weed killer, and then 2 weeks later again, I had to go through and spray for grasshoppers another time. And then after second cut is when the army worms hit. So then I had to come through and sprayed for the army worms, and then I still sprayed for the fertilizer and the Radiate from last year. The Radiate that I was spraying is a PGR. It improves the root growth, the root health. This Radiate Max that they came out with this year that I'll have access to, it is going to promote the plant growth, the leaves, the stem, the plant itself, and it's not so much the roots being able to get out and get the nutrients that are in the soil. The plant growth itself is what I'm really interested in seeing what that does. I got 2 more potential cuttings down here, and then by putting the nitrogen down, which I went with the full rate of nitrogen on this second cut. For what the forecast is saying, we have the moisture coming that's gonna kick this stuff in the pants. And when it comes to getting ready for third cut, much like I'm getting ready for second cut, it's going to entirely depend on weather conditions, ground conditions at that point in time. And I don't know until that time comes. I do want to upgrade my sprayer. I'm not a fan of this one. I had over this winter, which really, I put a bid in, I put a very good bid in, and it was a Top Air 1100 tandem axle. It didn't have any of the bells and whistles in regards to like the foam or what else, the wash tanks or anything else like that, because there were a bunch of other ones that were single axle, just the big running wheel, which I wanted the tandem axle because I wanted the four wheels for more flotation down here for obvious reasons, plus stability on these hills. It really wasn't, it was a clean sprayer, like it hadn't potentially been used that much, but the thing that bugged me is everything that had sold that I did the research on had sold for about $2,500 less than my minimum bid. And when the sale came, they started at my minimum bid. They bid once. Somebody that was actually at the auction, because I wasn't there, they bid once, ran it up $1,000 more than what I offered on it, and it went to the next guy. Looking back, I probably should have pursued it a little bit harder, but early in the year, I don't know, third time's a charm. What's going to happen is the next time that I find a sprayer that I like, I'm just going to get grumpy about it, and I'm just going to put in a good bid on it. Probably actually sit and actively bid on it versus just putting a pre-bid in. I think I've lost a lot of items that I would have been happy to purchase, but it seems like you put your opening bid in, and never fails, that manages to sell just one tick above what you're willing to pay. I don't know if that's so much the auctioneers or the people that are at the sales. Personally, I feel like that's more the auctioneers myself. They know what somebody is willing, the maximum that somebody's willing to pay, so they see that as a minimum bid. We'll start off there and try to go from there. Otherwise, we got this guy locked in. I'm a little grumpy over that one, because that would have been a nice sprayer. I'm only using it for spraying hay. And to be honest with you, if I was going to start spraying our row crops, which there has been talk of it, but I just don't have the time to do it. But I'd be looking at a self-propelled and have more of the versatility of it before I'd buy a pull type to spray any of our row crops. Because on our contours, a pull type sprayer would just cause more damage than I'd want to watch. So there's that. I got a little bit. I'm trying to run the sprayer out basically till empty. And that part of the farm is done. The bottom's done. The bench is done. All I got left is the neighbor's place and the pasture. So I got 2 more fills out of the tanks. The one is empty, and I can run that out in about 30 minutes, give or take. The problem is like the field ground, I went back and forth on it, but I was still going slower in B range because I was going right up and over and crossways, diagonal on those steep waterways. The bottom, where you just saw me, the upper bottom, it's the easiest running on this entire farm. The neighbor's place is easy running too for about a third of it, maybe a half of it. I did my tedding video on it. It's when you get into the hills and the turns and the nooks and crannies of the place. So it's that stuff where you lose your efficiency. It gets kind of annoying. I'm gonna let you guys go because when I'm doing this here, I actually have to keep a close eye on the boom because that one behind me, well, let's just say that before I came down here, I had to do a bunch of welding on that boom from last year. So I don't have any problem with keeping the boom and the 3-point raised all the way up. The only problem is that one, it kissed a wood post last year. Right back there actually, and I'm glad I welded it because it was fixing to crack. It would have let me fold it, unfold it once, and that would have been the end of it. But going through and been spraying all afternoon, and I actually got a nozzle that's plugged. Well, I guess that's good reason as any to stop. So, if you guys are watching the rest of the story, take care, take it easy, keep in touch. I'll talk to you guys later. I do a voiceover of at least these vids, right? So I have these 2 clips where I was spraying probably the worst part of the farm, at least on this place. I don't know if you really say the neighbor's place is that bad, but this is Waterway Central. This is where, on the left-hand side is where, at the very top, just as you start coming off the hill, is where you probably feel the worst, or the most weightless, shall we say. There is fluid in the inner tires, the 46, so I mean it does hold its ground for the most part, but probably sounds terrible, but let's just say that with singles on this machine, the 46, and I felt either side of the tires start to become weightless on one of these hills, I'd probably have, no time to really think about it, and it'd just be outright panic. So you slam on the brake, the left-hand brake or the right-hand brake, and you hope that if you actually slow down that tire, you'll actually turn downhill. You'll turn into it. But I've never had to do that, thankfully. And if it wasn't for the duals being on, I wouldn't be able to do this. I mean, to be honest, there's no way I could do this without the duals being on. And with them on like this, it doesn't bother me one bit. I've never sprayed this farm like this, where I'm actually still going straight back and forth from the eastern side of the field. I picked a straight track from last year, and I try to do 2, sometimes 3 headlands around the field. And I don't know if you really saw me. You couldn't really see me doing it when I was talking earlier. But I actually, when I come into the headland, the sprayer automatically, it shuts off. That's what the swath control is for. But I actually shut the master switch off, because if there's any overlap or underlap where there's just any amount between my passes that isn't sprayed, which it does happen even running auto track, it'll turn on a whole section just to get like a 2 foot or 1 foot section. If it's on the monitor and it isn't covered, the sprayer will make sure that it's covered. And what I don't like about that is then you're over applying your liquid, because I ended up coming up short. I did the last tank fill, so the last 300 gallons I actually applied at 10 gallons to the acre versus the 20 I was aiming for, and I contribute a large part to that from overlap, and another percentage of that to the fact that I think I sprayed more acres than I thought was down here, to be quite honest. So it's holding me out. I do have to have the GPS back on the gator this fall. I'm not going to come down here. I'm not going to put the monitor in the gator to come down here just to do this. It's not worth running the wiring harness through the gator. But I will do my darndest to, as long as we can go through for third cut, clean this farm up as much as we have the last 2 years, and then when I go to run boundaries this fall, I'll make a note of it. I'll come down, I'll burn down through here, and I'll run around it and actually get a true idea how many acres are actually down here, which it's a variable number, to be honest. We all know that. Depends on what the bottom is. So until next time, I'll talk to you later.